Greetings duelists and welcome to another video. So in these past weeks we already started the regional series for 2024, and we've had a few people that have topped with the Scareclaw deck. Shoutouts to Alan and shoutouts to Miguel. They both topped their respective regionals with the Scareclaw strategy, and I kind of wanted to go over them as well as go over my list because I did make some changes and update to my Scareclaw deck, and seeing the decisions that was made during those regionals does influence my choices on how the deck was made. And I also want to talk over this because as people who are familiar with this channel already know, I've been very advocate of the Scareclaw deck for the past few months. Before this season started with Duelix Nexus, that was the deck I was taking to most events, and that was the deck I was doing the most well with. However, there is some caveats that led me into not playing the deck anymore, but that does not mean that I still cannot update the deck and I still cannot bring my choices and intricacies that it came to this strategy. So before I go to my list, I wanted to show the regional list that we're topping and talk about the common trends that we're noticing with these decks, as opposed to what I've also been doing with Scareclaw in the past. This is Alan's list. Basically, the first thing that we're going to notice is, and this is something Miguel also did, they're both maxing out on all the Scareclaw names, except for the Kashtira, obviously. But outside of the Scareclaw Kashtira, they're maxing on every single name. This is not an incorrect approach. Basically, if you played Scareclaw, you already know that the more names you have, the more consistent it is to get to tryhard. And not only that, it also makes it so you don't need to search for a rival to make tryhard. You can just search for your other interruptions like the Splash, the Twin Saw, or if you're going second, you can add the Fanging or Straddle. So on Alan's list, he's playing a lot of the Scareclaw cards, utility cards. Basically, he just focused on try to win the game with just resolving tryhard and just amassing advantage over your opponent. So that's one thing that we're noticing about this list. Another thing that we're noticing is he plays Ash, Valor, Imperm. That's kind of like a standard. Most the lists that top in regionals are going to play these as their non-engine. But we're also noticing triple tactic talents at 3. We're also seeing the Cold by the Grave, which is not super common in most decks. So I'll talk about Cold by the Grave first. This card is mainly here because this deck is weak to Droll and Lockbird. Droll and Lockbird is the one outlier that really shuts down this deck, and that card is very popular in this format. So just having an answer to that is kind of beneficial. This card is just slowly gravitating to see more and more play. It's also really good against the Chimera deck. If your opponent just summons Mirror Sword Knight, this card shuts it down. Against other strategies like Unchained or Rescue Ace, for example, this card is just very beneficial. Triple tactic talents, I think this is a no-brainer. I think if you're playing Scareclaw, you should highly consider this card, either in the main or in the side. Basically, it's a card that pretty much gives you an advantage whenever your opponent tries to disrupt your combo. This can be either an extender, it could it could just punish your opponent and just look at their hand. And if you don't get to activate this card, that means your Scareclaw combo resolved, and if your Scareclaw combo resolved, you're way already ahead in the game. One thing that we're noticing with this list is he is playing Splash in the main deck. This card is not the worst idea in the world. This deck lacks like really concrete negation outside of like making Baron the floor. So just having a card that can help protect your board is very ideal and beneficial. Also, like a lot of people just have problems out in the tryhard. So just having a card that can protect it, like the Fanging and like the Splash, are just very beneficial. Um, but yeah, there's not much to talk about this list. It's very simplistic. Something that he's also doing is playing Link Spider, and he's also playing like a full Nightmare package. I think this is correct. Like there are cards that really hurt part of your combo, stuff like Anti-Spell Fragrance, for example. So just having an engine out to it just by summoning your monsters is kind of strong. When SP Little Knight comes to the TCG, which is post Age of Overlord, I think the Nightmares are going to be power crept. I don't think these will be needed in the extra deck. And this is like one of the best decks that can utilize that card, because in order to do their banish effect, you do need a monster that it comes from the extra deck, and like a really good segue into it is the Scareclaw Lightheart. Also, Espidilone is a monster that can take herself off the board, so it also helps us so you can keep making more Lighthearts and keep going to try hard. But yeah, that's it about that list. Everything else is kind of standard. Like you play Dark and Asa, those are kind of mainstays in this deck. Access Code is another easy one. Baron and Vicious Astrolabe are here because of Visa Starfrost. It turns it into like a mini Manadium deck if you think about it that way. It helps break through boards as well. So that's Alan's list. Now let's go to Miguel's list. So Miguel's list is almost the same. There are a few things that are kind of different. Like for starters, he is playing a Fed Veiler and Ghost Ogre in the main deck. So he decided on playing more hand traps instead of the Scareclaw utility cards. And he's also not playing talents. Another thing that is kind of cool that we're seeing from his list, he is playing Instant Fusion. And I think Instant Fusion is kind of cool because it's basically another out to draw with the Thousand Eyes Restrict. It's also another monster that you're summoning in defense, so you're getting more optimized effects from like stuff like Reichhardt and like Reichphobia. It's not as bad going second because the Restrict can actually contest against monsters that are already currently on the board, not just the graveyard. So I think this card is really cool. It's only a one-of, so you kind of have to draw it, but if you do draw it, it's pretty much like another copy of Cold by the Grave, which is kind of beneficial for a deck like this one because, again, this deck is weak to draw. The other unorthodox card that is here in his deck is Monster Reborn. I've played with Monster Reborn. I played it on my Scareclaw list in the past, and I really like this card against like the Kashtira deck. If they have like stuff like Fenrir in the graveyard, it gives me like a lot of advantage. If you get rid of their monsters, like stuff like Baron or stuff like Axel Stardust, stuff like that, you can just reborn those monsters and just utilize their effects. Against Manadium, this card is extra funny because if you see like a Visa Starfrost in their graveyard, or you see like a Scareclaw monster in their graveyard, you can pretty much reborn it and then you just start your Scareclaw combo. And Manadium is a popular deck at the moment, so I'm not opposed to this at all. He did say on his video that he was thinking of cutting it, and I don't blame him. Like, there's a reason almost nobody plays Monster Reborn, but I am a fan of this card. Another strange thing that is in his extra deck is Cross Cheap. Basically, he has a line where it gets you to Baron under 5 summons if you summon the Cross Cheap, which is not an incorrect approach. You are risking yourself now grabbing this Twin Saw, which is a card that is part of your disruption. It's part of what something that Scareclaw has as an identity that puts it above other decks. Another thing I didn't talk about is they are maxing out on both Lightheart and Tryhard, maxing out on both names. In the grand game, these are very beneficial to have. Just having ways for you to keep going if they get disrupted at the first time. Take note that Lightheart's effect to add Dragphobia is not once per turn. The only thing that is like once is that graveyard effect, and you do have to use a Scareclaw on the field in the main monster zone in order as material for Lightheart. So that's it for those lists. I guess one other thing we can talk about is the Savage Dragon. Mainly you can make this with FF Veiler and just one of the 7s being like Fenrir or the Scareclaw Kashtira. It's just another interruption, it's another form of negation. So again, not the worst idea in the world. It's something that is not really hard to do and could win you the duel outright. And you are going to get link monsters in your graveyard very efficiently, so this is not like the worst idea ever. So now that we covered both regional topping lists, I want to talk about that list that I currently made. So one influence that I took from both players that topped with Scareclaw is if you remember my last list, I used to play a heavy Kashtira package. Now I'm not doing that anymore. I'm just playing Fenrir and 2 Scareclaw Kashtiras. The main reason for that is that Kashtira is slowly shifting themselves out of the format, and since Kashtira are basically moving themselves out, like there's no real need to play a heavier Kashtira package because 1, people will be more prepared for the Kashtira stuff, and 2, one thing that made this deck very advantageous last format, at least on my case, was how strong it was against Kashtira itself. Because just summoning like the Arise Heart with just 1 material was very strong. Also, I am playing the Brave token engine. I will probably make a separate video talking about this, but I am still a fan of this engine in this deck. And one of the main reasons for that is because I am playing Revolution Synchron. So Revolution Synchron is kind of cool because with it you can make Visas Amritara by using like this Black Rose Moonlight as material. You can also play Ancient Fairy Dragon if you wish. But you make Visas Amritara, and Visas Amritara is treated as Visas Starfrost on the field. So with Visas Amritara, you can get to Lightheart, which means you can get to your entire Scareclaw combo without needing to either use Visas Starfrost or waste an ad of the right card. Another thing is that Amritara can search for any card that mentions Visas, so you can add the Rhyphobia, you can add the Scareclaw, Twin Saw, you can add Arrival, you can just add any Scareclaw utility card without needing to use right card for it. You can also banish it on the board to make the Astrolaud. Take note, you can only do that from it on the board and not from the graveyard, because only on the board is treated as Visa Starfrost. But yeah, that is one tactical approach that I'm taking with this. A card that I considered playing was Naturia Beast, because I am playing the Brave Token engine, and the Brave Token is in level 4 Earth. So you can use it with Revolution Synchron, reborning itself from the graveyard, making itself level 1, and they're both Earth, meaning that you can make Naturia Beast. But right now I just opted to just play like the Moonlight Black Rose alongside Boral Savage and Amritara. Same thing Luyo was doing, same thing Miguel was doing with his Scareclaw list. I kind of opted for the same thing, but instead of using a Fed Veiler, just using Revolution Synchron. You can also use Revolution plus Fenrir, or Revolution plus like the Scareclaw Kashtira to just make Baron the floor. So that's another really cool thing about it. But yeah, that's something that I opted to do. Something I also took from them in inspiration. Like for example, I'm playing the Reborn. I'm also playing Kolbai. I'm playing the 3 talents that comes from Alan's lists. Something I'm doing differently is I am still playing Thrust. I think Thrust is just very beneficial in this deck because if you go first, you just set the Twin Saw and you don't have to search for it anymore. With the right card, you can search for something else. If you go second, then this is going to get you to Talent or Arrival or Terraforming, which can get you to Raise South or Rayphobia. This can also get you to Foolish Burial, to Reborn, to Rite of Aramesir. There's just a lot of targets for this card if you go second. They just help you push through the board. But yeah, I'm not maxing out on Tryhard because I don't go through it as hard. I am playing more Scareclaw names, but I am not maxing out on Balone because I think Balone is like the weakest Scareclaw. I think with 11 names and visas and an engine that can get you to Anritara is just more than enough. I'm still playing the Race Off. This is weaker to draw, but like this deck is already weak to draw as is. So you kind of have to take elimination of the fear of draw if you are playing this deck, which is something that I wasn't as experienced with, which is one of the main reasons why I'm not playing Scareclaw this format. But yeah, that's it for all the Scareclaw stuff. I hope you enjoy this deck profile. I hope that this helps you with your deck building. Like, I'd say when it comes to like Scareclaw in general, there's not really like a wrong approach with the list. It's just more of are you prepared for what's happening in the format? Like, I think if you are aware of what's popular in the format and you just play against it, I think this deck is a really strong choice. This deck is a deck that doesn't lose to Dimensional Barrier, which is a very, very high upside for this strategy. Not many people know how to beat Tryhard, so that is another really huge benefit of this deck. This deck can OTK like out of left field. It has utility in the main deck that can fight through back row and floodgates. Not all of them, but at least some to some degree. Yeah. I hope you enjoyed this deck profile. I hope you found this informative. If you're a fan of Scareclaw, I hope this video was beneficial for you to some extent. And yeah, keep practicing and keep dueling.